Welcome everyone to Mail Fuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine Season 1 Episode 15. It's called If Wishes Were Horses. So full spoilers for the episode. And this is... I mean, it kind of goes in a different direction at a certain point, but for the first little while I was kind of thinking, oh, this is Deep Space Nine's like Naked Now, or like an episode like that, where there's something hijinks happening to everyone based on their either desires or, in this case, their imaginations kind of coming to life. Yeah, that's felt like the most old school Trek episode they've probably had on this show.
Oh, definitely. Obviously, we had a very similar one in the original series with the like the theme park sort of one.
Oh yeah, I was even thinking of that one, but yeah, you're right. There was that. That was the one with the bunny. I want to say with McCoy.
That sounds likely, yes.
Yeah. Whereas this one, we get a dead baseball player. We get some ladies for Quark. We get the rump, and we get we get double Dax. We get Dax the second.
Yeah.
So I was like, why am I having trouble thinking of the main one? It's because it's the same as a regular character. That's why. So yeah, basically this episode early on establishes, like, at first it's just Rumpelstiltskin, and you're like, okay, what's going on? This is weird.
It's kind of an amusing introduction, in that the kid's like, Rumpelstiltskin's in my room, and they're like, yeah, sure he is.
Yeah.
And then O'Brien walks in and is like, well, shit.
How am I going to explain this? The child's going to be scared for the rest of her life, even once we get rid of this little bastard.
Yeah.
Honestly, I remember that story from Next Gen where there was going to be a leprechaun in an episode and he fought against it. He's like, I'm not doing it. Which, again, props to him. He was basically a nothing character on that show at the time, and he stood his ground. So, took a pair on him. All I could imagine with this Rumpelstiltskin is that he was combing that script, making sure it wasn't a stealth leprechaun. It's like when they're telling me it's going to be Rumpelstiltskin, but they're going to just, in the last day, here's the actor on set, oh, it's a leprechaun.
Yeah. yeah. I could imagine that. It's very just close enough.
Yeah. It's he popped up and I'm like, he looks like Leprechaun from the Leprechaun movies with a couple of, less green, but otherwise pretty similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he's in the ballpark for sure.
So, yeah, obviously it turns out to be not quite that. It turns out this is an alien race that's actually using their imaginations to sort of investigate them. And there's also a crisis going on, which they think is related to the imaginations, which is this rupture in space, which the only record of something similar happening in the past from the 23rd century, like almost basically swallowed an entire system. And so it's like, oh shit, the Bajorans may all die here. Like, we may have to deal with this. But the big reveal at the end of the episode is that even that crisis itself is one of the imaginations, and there was never anything actually wrong or dangerous happening. It was all just an examination of who everyone on the station were and how we all clicked. Some other superior race who can do this are just doing their own 5-year mission, exploring the galaxy.
Pretty much. They seem, hijinks aside, relatively benign by the end.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they're to harm anything. Clearly, they don't, like the one who's being like Dax 2 has no problems, getting all Frenchy with Bashir, right? Like, has no problems with any of that. So clearly they don't necessarily feel the same awkwardness of like pretending to do that we would. The big thing at the end is it's basically, a lot of these episodes, and you see this a lot in science fiction, where the story will eventually amount to, oh, humans are special because of this, right? And often it'll be we're so diverse, and that's different from all the alien races, which it tends to be in TV and movies, just because there's not enough time to make alien races as diverse as human beings actually are on Earth. Different cultures, all that kind of thing. Here it went with a different tactic. It was a slightly different focus. It was, oh, your imagination itself is what's special. And the way that the alien race puts it at the end, particularly the one who's being the dead baseball player, is that you have this unique affection for someone you never met, and it's based almost entirely on your imagination and how you've interacted with the imaginary version of this person. And I'm like, okay, like, I kind of appreciate this is going for a different angle on this.
And there's a nice little, like, meta angle as an audience. We're watching a TV show that someone has imagined, and created up, for us, and obviously there are definitely people who are attached to characters from Star Trek in the same way that that Sisko is attached to this baseball player.
Absolutely. So that's all good stuff, and yeah, I think that idea is solid. I think there's some fun to be had in the episode. That said, I would say as a whole, this isn't typically what I expect or want from a Deep Space Nine episode. And I realize we're only 15 into season 1 when I say that, but I think at this point it's kind of started to at least indicate what it wants to be to me, and there's a certain expectations that are coming with that. Whereas this felt more like an old Trek show
this
episode.
Is atypical for a Deep Space Nine episode, but it's not a bad episode. Like if this was an episode in season 3 or 4 of Next Gen, I don't exactly the same level of quality. I think we would be saying, that was a fun episode in between some of the heavier ones.
Yeah, not an important one, but a fun one, and with a nice little point at the end. In fact, I'm not entirely convinced this wasn't maybe a Next Gen script that didn't get used and was just
got repurposed. Yeah.
I could see that being the case.
It's very possible, especially if it was one of the submission scripts. They're like, we haven't really got space for it in Next Gen, but we could maybe do something with it for Deep Space Nine.
I tell you what I liked. One of my favorite little things in the episode is that Bashir's flirting with Dax and really wants to hit it off with Dax, and Dax is like, you're a bit of a playboy. Like, she lists a few ladies that he's been kind of charming as well at the same time, and basically, look, go take a cold shower. Although it wasn't a cold shower, it was like fusion shower set to
like
something,
radiation steam.
But it's basically, okay, it's done. She's been nice enough about it, but he's like, okay, fine, it's not going anywhere. But when the imaginary Dax shows up and starts kissing him, and I think as the audience, you've already seen Rumpelstiltskin, you kind of guess, I think, before it's revealed, this isn't the real Dax, right? I mean,
I think it's interesting because you don't see it's Dax straight away. You just see there's someone behind him. You see the hands, and the implication of what has already happened is clear. But you're immediately like, okay, well, this is another creation of some sort before you even know it's Dax.
Yeah, and because Rumpelstiltskin wasn't a fan, it wasn't Brian's fantasy to have a Rumpelstiltskin. So clearly, it's coming from imaginations, but not necessarily a positive thing. I mean, the crisis itself is obviously not a positive thing. It's just what someone was thinking. It's if anything, it's more like Ghostbusters when Ray thinks of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, because that's what he's thinking about, and then it appears. It's more like that, but. Yeah, so she's been all kissy with him, and then there's the reveal that, because they ask her a question on the bridge because they think it's the real Dax, and she's like, I don't know these things, and then the real Dax walks in. What I appreciate, my favourite little thing about this episode, is that the real Dax, one, finds it a little funny, but when he tries to sort of like bring it up and kind of apologise, because it's all a bit awkward that there's this, like, really slutty Dax trying to like have it off with them constantly, she has this very mature, and I guess obviously Dax the character is meant to be a much more mature character than she looks, but her attitude of being, technically you're the one whose privacy has been completely like torn apart here, because we're all seeing what your fantasy is, and that's something you would keep to yourself. I actually thought that was quite a smart little way of looking at it,
because it was a harmless imagination, right? That is the point here. He was hitting on, but he stopped. When she was like, "Hey, cool it." He didn't, really, he didn't get aggressive or anything. And then they say it's a harmless imagination, and I think her line was like, "Hey, I was a young man once."
Yeah, so it's funny.
He was like, "I get it,"
Which, admittedly,
it's harmless.
I do think there's a line where that action would be hard to take. Like, let's say Dax number 2 showed up in like dominatrix gear. Like, I think that attitude would be harder to maintain. Like, even though the logic would still be there, it would be like, okay, this is awkward. I know he thinks of me in this specific way now, and that's like, it's one thing when he's just having kind of romantic dreams about me. It's another thing when there's some really specific S&M shit, or pick whatever you want. That's just what my mind went to first, but
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, but I like that approach to it. I thought that was good. Yeah, and it kind of explores a little bit of what everyone, thinks of. Obviously, with O'Brien, just because he was reading his daughter a story. The baseball thing, which actually ties into a little thing with Quark that I actually quite liked as well, is that basically, because Cisco requested that one of the hollow suites in his place, which is typically, from the sounds of it, used exclusively for porn and VR sex, or AR sex, or hollow sex, whatever you want to call it, right? That's the implication from everything we've heard about these hollow suites. It sounds like because Cisco asked to have one for some innocent baseball antics for his son, he's like, oh, there's a whole market here. We could have like a whole other wing of hollow suites that are family friendly and just do regular, everyday things that people want to do that aren't dirty. So he wants to expand.
Even in the future, porn dictates the format and the technology, and then it goes from there. That's
the crazy thing. This is like the track record of technology is in line with this thinking, because VHS won because it had the porn. Everything else went there afterwards. I don't know if it was true for Blu-ray necessarily, but the internet had porn, so all of a sudden, like, the internet grows and expands much quicker than it may have otherwise done.
It's a very real phenomenon, and I think that's not an accident that this is making that joke. I think someone's very aware of that at this point while they're writing the show. Especially that the VHS thing would be relatively recent, for them.
I mean, is this why Laserdisc never took off? Did Laserdisc not have porn?
Probably. It was more expensive, right?
It was also, it was way more expensive as well.
Yeah, but that's why, the porn studios probably didn't choose it because of that.
Yeah, I suppose. Anyway. It'd be like putting on a vinyl when you go to watch porn. You grab the big disc, like, all right, slot it in. All right.
Yeah.
Rub your hands together.
A lot of effort.
So yeah, like I think it's basically an episode full of little moments that are fun on their own. It's not like the greatest episode ever, but there's a lot of little things. Quark with these ladies, and then Odo pointing out, like, why are you enjoying this? All your customers are all fantasizing about winning, so therefore they're all winning. And he's like, that's not possible. So it's all of a sudden he's in his nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
So I had a kick out of that.
Amazing.
Odo's imagination was that he arrested
Quark and put him in a cell, and he was just staying locked up. Yeah.
Which, and he ends the scene by saying, no imagination. Like, no imagination, my ass. And I'm like, I don't know if I would count you imagining that you locked up Quark as being that imaginative, to be honest.
I think it's more the fact that he did manifest anything.
Yeah, maybe he didn't think he could. Yeah, maybe he thought he was like immune or different from everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. Also, into just like small passing lines of dialogue. Did we know before this that Odo had no sense of smell?
I don't think so. Yeah, that came up. Yeah, I don't think he's mentioned that before. Is that just like something they've written in because he's got a different nose and they've just kind of like, we'll just canonize that this also means he can't smell?
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know. But then again,
it was just a little just like random character detail that is meaningless in this moment right here, but I can see how you could play with that down the line. Right?
Maybe, maybe he's in a situation on his own where he doesn't realize there's like gas been put in the room or something, or
and this is just they've established that now as a possibility, for whenever.
Or maybe he can detect something like that, but not via smell. Maybe like he's got other sensor things because of his species that are different to us. I don't know. I'm just thinking because he's normally a liquid, like, can he detect like a different substance in the air via something more molecular focused rather than
possibly? Yeah.
I don't know. Just theorizing. Maybe that'll come up. Maybe it won't. I don't know.
Plenty of time to see.
Yeah. So, there's not much with some of the other characters. I mean, Kira does have one moment where actually, this moment stuck out to me, not because it was that important, but just because it was visually quite disturbing, like more so than I expect on a Trek show. She imagines there's a fire on like one of the decks, and this guy runs out like completely set on fire, like running down the hallway.
Yeah, it's really dark.
It's like a proper stunt, it's a proper like end of Halloween 2. We've got a guy in, a flammable or a flame retardant suit, and he's
not a flammable suit. That would be bad.
That would be very bad for the stunt man. You know what I meant. But yeah, so really, it was just, there was an gnarly visual. I was like, oh, that was quite a dark little, and it was a throwaway moment as well. It was just basically like her having one other little moment of imagination come to life, and you know,
It's, do you know what, I think it's throwaway at the time. I think it's actually quite important in terms of setting up for the end reveal, in that it establishes, these can be bigger than just like one person appearing, or just, there's obviously there's the slow phenomenon, but I think it highlights that you can see danger, and like it can feel and look very real.
I think even more specifically, that's all valid, but I think even more specifically, at the end, they mention that Dax like thought about this type of anomaly because they were getting some readings about, I don't know, protons or something. And I think this tracks with that, because literally as they're going down there, they're saying, oh, these, if this tear keeps happening, it's these areas of the station that will get hit first. So she's thinking about what will happen if the tragedy happens. So when she goes down there and there's fire and there's a guy running about on fire, that's effectively the knock-on effect of she was thinking about what would happen here if the disaster does, hit it. So I think it tracks with that as well. It's like she was literally thinking about it right before, and then sure enough, there it was. And it basically only broke off and like disappeared when the fireball hit her, because that was kind of like proof that it wasn't real, because it hit her.
And then there's the realization of, oh, this isn't real, so everything kind of snaps back to normal.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's not bad. I was curious where it was going, because at one point you see like three of the imaginary things, the three main ones, the rump, Dax 2, and the baseball player. They get together and they're talking about everyone else, and I was like, oh, where are we going with this? Obviously
it sounded really sinister, because he's like, I've made a connection with mine, we can do this. Yeah,
it's that sort of thing. I'd like to go back and watch that scene again, knowing how like nice enough they are in the end. I just sort of read it differently.
And I think the next, what makes it feel even more sinister is the next scene with the baseball player is him appearing to Jake and being like, oh, can we tempt you back to play some baseball? And he's like, no, I gotta do the homework. It's like, my dad will kill me if not. It's like, oh, he'll kill you, will he? Let's see if we can make this happen. Is the way it plays. Yeah. And I think in hindsight, he's testing their limits, seeing what would they actually do, in this investigation into the species, as they announced at the end.
I suppose the biggest example of that is right before they figure out the disaster's not real. The rumps basically saying to O'Brien, if you give me your daughter, sort of playing into the Rumpelstiltskin steals children narrative, I'll fix this disaster. I can solve it. I've got the magic to do it, but I'll do it if you give me your daughter. So again, it feels like this big test of their character. Like, will they turn over one of their loved ones to save everyone else?
I thought it was interesting. It never got to the choice for O'Brien to actually say no. Like, Cisco's the one that steps in. Like, O'Brien's like, oh, maybe genuinely contemplating. Does he sacrifice his own daughter just for the lives of everyone there?
I don't know if I read it as like he's contemplating more than just he's still just kind of like trying to process, like, is this like even a real decision he's having to make? Like, it's like, is this just a bunch of bollocks? Like, I'm talking to Rumpelstiltskin. Like, even now he's not really quite sure what he'd take from it, Could
be that as well, yeah. I've read it as more his genuinely as like, would he sacrifice the one life to save the entire station and all of the
wait, what's that?
The entire system.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, pretty much. He's heard that somewhere, I'm sure, once or twice.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's not a bad episode, but it's not it doesn't feel important. It doesn't feel like a standout episode. There is.
It is enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, there's an implication at the end that, oh, maybe we'll come back and tell you more about us, in a year.
Yeah, he says see you next year, which feels very much like, oh, maybe we'll get an episode with him next season.
Maybe we will, maybe we won't. I won't really be that fussed either way, to be honest. Like, this is fine if it's just it.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, if they've got some interesting ideas for continuation of these beings, whatever they may be, it does sound like they came through the black hole, though. Because they said they followed a ship through. They tracked a ship that was communicating with Deep Space Nine, and that led them. So they were going around the Gamma Quadrant to begin with.
Yeah, I think it's very noble they left it open. It definitely feels like they left it as a possibility for this show's queue to be recurring. Like, this style of being, to have that recurring kind of not real threat necessarily, but more, the mischief
Yeah, actually, for a second before he said where they came from, I was actually thinking it was building up to, oh, we're beings from inside, because you know how we know there's beings inside the wormhole.
Yes. Yeah.
I was thinking this may be another set of beings from in there that was like testing them for whatever reason. Because obviously throughout the episode, I knew everything wasn't going to get destroyed. We're not doing that halfway through season 1, but
that'd be a ballsy move.
I was curious as to, okay, how are we going to solve this tear? And you know, and I think the episode does play with your expectations a little bit, because at one point when they're talking about this past example that happened to, and it was a Vulcan ship that came across it and it swallowed this entire system. Cisco asked the question, oh, is there any reports from those Vulcans that if they experienced hallucinations or anything out of the ordinary? And it's like, well, no, but like they were only there for 12 hours. And then Bashir says, yeah, and Vulcans don't exactly have, you know,
much imagination,
brimming imagination. In the same way that Odo maybe doesn't have an obvious, like, quick imagination like all the humans seem to. And I feel like that line of questioning, it felt like a normal, you know, it felt like Picard in the room with the crew discussing the situation, what the problem is. You can
see the scene in the ready room.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
And I was like, oh, is this going to lead to the solution? And it never did. Like, the solution was never down that path, but it felt like a natural thing to have that scene. So I think it did a good job of setting me up thinking, oh, they're going to figure out like how the two things are related. And then it turns out this is just mimicking what that thing was. It has nothing to do with that thing. It has nothing to do with those Vulcans. It's just a standalone thing.
It's not even, you want to use the word coincidence, but it's not coincidence. It's confirmation bias.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Because it's you know, she's expecting something, and then all of a sudden there it is, you know, exactly what she was looking for, and you know, it just spirals from that.
Yeah. So, no, not bad. Like the rating of this one on IMDb is quite low. It's lower than the last one, which I think is fair. I think the last one had a bit more. You know, that was the Kira helping the old guy who didn't want to leave the planet or the moon, and that was. I think that had more going for it. There was a bit more sort of in-depth character stuff there.
Had more of a point, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas this one feels like it's a nice little jaunt. And sure, it's funny Odo saying it's snowing in the promenade and like getting all upset about it. But ultimately, just a decent watch with some fun ideas. But yeah.
Yeah, but if this is on the lower end of the scale that we've kind of experienced so far in this show, I'm not too mad about that.
Yeah, I think it is. That's definitely feels like season 1 growing pains of like this doesn't feel like a Deep Space Nine. This feels like another show. This feels like Star Trek or maybe even TNG at push. But it's still finding their footing. And I feel like by the time we get to season 2 or certainly season 3, episodes like this will probably be very, very few and far between. And
if they are showing up, they have to be a higher quality. Again, This isn't like a bad quality. This is. Compared to some early episodes from TNG, for example, of this same style of episode, I think this is significantly better than those. You know, as a season 1 growing pain episode goes, this is still pretty good. But in season 3, you know, you would have to be quite a lot better to still be considered quite good at that point of the show.
Yeah, that's fair. Also, shout out because the actor playing Rumpelstiltskin, I recognize his photo on IMDb. He's from a couple of David Lynch things. He was in Twin Peaks. You know,
okay.
Yeah, the little guy dancing.
I figured as soon as you said he was in Twin Peaks, like who else is going to be in that?
He's in Mulholland Drive as well, also David Lynch. But I didn't obviously recognize him in the makeup because you know they had them all rumped up. But yeah. So there you go. That is our thoughts on If Wishes Were Horses. I believe next time we're back to TNG, so look forward to that in a more timely fashion, I do promise. But next time on Deep Space Nine, we have an episode called The Forsaken, and here's the description. Here's a description via IMDb. I was not prepared for the first 2 words of this description.
If it's Tasha Yar now, I'm going to throw something.
No, it's not Tasha Yar. Lakshmana Troy comes for a political visit and instead hounds Odo for romantic attention. Oh, that sounds great, actually. I'm on board.
So that is the same vein of episode as this one, in the kind of the fun, light-hearted, jokesy one. But we've had these episodes on TNG, and they have been, at worst, enjoyable, at best, absolute gold.
Yes. Honestly, Odo is an even harder ass than Picard is, so this could be gold. And I'm not even done with the description. Meanwhile, an alien probe wreaks havoc on the station's computer, leaving Odo and Lakshmana trapped together. So, at what point does he try to T1000 his way out of the room? He's like, there's a crack.
Very quickly.
There's a crack here somewhere. I'm going to get through it.
With her there very fast. He's like, I'll come back for you.
Okay, well, there you go. That's what's coming up next time. Let us know what you thought of this one in the comments. And of course, hit the like button if you'd please. And of course, you can support all the content over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. But that is us. We'll see you next time for TNG, and after that for the return of Mummy Troy. So I did not expect her to be a crossover character, but here we are. So there you go. Thank you very much for watching. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek. And what do electric puddles dream of? Electric
Lakshmana Troy?
Sheep? He'd probably prefer the sheep.
There's no way this Kirk is Tyler. You better edit that out.
I can't. It was literally before
you have to edit it out. No, that can't remain.